Welcome to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. With us again is Perry Farella, was guest on episode 67. Perry, welcome back to the show. How are we doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. You have a great product that needs to be known in the Chicago marketplace. That's why we're having you back on. For those who don't know, we do a ton of flips, a ton of investments, and we have a lot of different lenders for that. Renovo, who's been a strong sponsor of the show. But when you're looking to do something that you're going to own or occupy, so if you're going to either house hack or your own personal investment, Perry's got a tremendous product. Please listen to episode 67. I actually use that. We bought a house on our block that my family will be moving into, and we use the product, and you get rehab costs, under 4%, easy draws, upfront money to the GC, just a lot of great things. It needs to be known out there. It could be your competitive advantage when you're looking to house hack, a 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit, etc. So that's my little plug there. But today, Perry, let's get you on here. One of the questions we get a lot is closing costs. What should I expect on the HUD statement? Because there's the actual lender fees. There's a lot of third-party fees. You have the city, county, state fees. Then you're also getting credits. You have rent credits, tax prorations. For someone who hasn't done this before and wants to know, hey, am I being taken advantage of? Are these numbers all right? Can you please just walk us through almost line by line or break it up by category, what to expect in the terms of closing fees?
Yeah, be happy to. So breaking it down by categories, the first category I think let's talk about is lender, because that is something that you'll see at the top of the sheet typically. The sheets are organized in different sections that are typically alphabetical, and they can be a bit confusing. So the key is understand the basics. So the lender fees, that would include things like underwriting, processing, attorney doc prep fees, maybe to prep the doc package for the closing, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is generally in the range of maybe $1,500 to $2,000, let's say. And that would be apart from paying any discount fee. A discount fee with a D, discount would mean that you are paying some upfront interest in exchange for getting a lower interest rate for the whole lifetime of the loan. That's what a discount is. It's different from an origination fee. You might see a lender origination fee. That's just another category of fees that a lender can categorize their fees into. So sometimes some lenders will say, well, we have a 1% origination fee, but then we don't have anything broken down in more detail. Or other lenders will say, no, we have no origination fee, but we have underwriting, processing, tax service, doc prep, wire fees, etc., flood search fees. So you see all of those fees under the lender section, and they generally should range about probably $1,500 to $2,000, and that would also include an appraisal of the property that the lender will do. As an income property, you're going to want an operating income statement, a rent summary schedule to know what the market rate rent should be, as well as the value. So that might be $500 or $600 right there just for appraisal. So those are the lender fee categories.
Real quick, Perry, I want to go back to the discount points real quick.
Okay.
So I can pay, 1% of my loan, 1 point to buy down my rate, X%, right? And there's different options there.
Yeah.
Just high level, general rule of thumb, when would it potentially make sense to pay? I'm going to pay a half point. I'm going to pay 3/4 point, whatever, to buy down the rate. In what scenario does that make more sense than, screw it, I'm not going to pay the upfront?
It makes sense if this is a buy and hold situation. It does not make sense if it's a fix and flip situation. So like in our loans, we can do a fix and flip loan as well. But then what do you care about? The interest rate, because you may only make 6 months of mortgage payments before you sell it and pay off that loan. So interest rate is of less of a concern. But if this is a buy and hold strategy or even your personal residence, then yeah, it would make a lot of sense if you're going to keep it for at least 5 years to go ahead and pay 1 point. Generally speaking, 1 point or 1%, it's the same thing, of the loan amount, should buy the rate down by about 1/4% if you're willing to pay 1% of the loan amount. And you can pay more than that if you wish. And again, the longer you're going to hold that property, the more it makes sense to do that. It generally takes about 60 months to get that money back. So you just take the cost of the money and then divide it, and then you'll get how many number of months it's going to take you to get it back. Meaning that if you're going to save $100 a month and you spend $1,000, then it's going to take you only 10 months to get that money back. And so obviously, if you're going to keep the house 10 months or longer, then after the 10th month, you'll be ahead of the game by having paid that discount and then have that lower rate for the life of the loan.
Awesome. No, love the breakdown there. I guess the only thing I'd add to listeners is when you're thinking, oh, I'm going to hold this thing forever. It's well, are you going to refi it? Because if you're going to refi it in 2 or 3 years, it may or may not make sense. But love the breakdown. Appreciate that because we get that question a few times.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in a refi situation, you have to forecast, am I planning to buy and hold? Am I forecasting interest rates are going to be lower in 6 months or 12 months when the house is all done? And am I going to be able to refi? But what if in 12 months interest rates are higher? So you have a couple different options. So you just have to kind of figure out what you think your strategy is going to be relative to where interest rates are, and then the cost of what that discount would be.
Yep. So talk to us a little about just some of the other fees you'll see on the HUD. Like in Chicago, we have the transfer tax, like the set amount. The county's got their fee, the state's got their fee, et cetera. Like what are some numbers that we should be underwriting for when making a purchase in the city?
If you make a purchase in Chicago, the transfer stamp tax or that fee on all real estate is $10.50 for each $1,000 of purchase price. And that's broken out between the buyer paying $7.50 and the seller has to pay $3. And that's how the city gets the $10.50 transfer stamp tax per each $1,000 of purchase price. So you just take the purchase price, drop the zeros, like if you're paying $100,000, 100 times 1050, that's the total transfer stamp tax. And that's disclosed on the HUD or on the closing disclosure in 2 ways, as a total, but the buyer doesn't pay the whole $10.50. That's key. The seller pays $3 of it and the buyer pays $7.50 of it. And that can be a significant amount of money depending upon whatever your purchase price is. That could even be the most expensive piece of all these closing cost numbers. So in the city and even in some suburbs, there may be a transfer stamp tax to pay. A lot of the suburbs have the sellers paying it only, not the buyers. But in the city, the seller pays $3 and the buyer pays $7.50 of it. So that'll be disclosed both as a gross number and then broken out between buyer and seller number.
We should link to the IAR breakdown of every city, village in Illinois and who pays what and what percentage. So yes, most of the suburbs have it. And it just depends on who pays for it, buyer or seller. So I'll find that PDF and we'll link it to the show that shows every single city and what they charge.
Cool. All right. And then also, what else should we be looking? Are there any other fees? Like, did we discuss any of the other third parties? Like, what should I be paying for title? Why am I seeing, a title commitment for both title insurance and for my lender? Like, why am I seeing multiple things there?
Sure. Yeah. The next biggest component will be the title fees. All closings in Illinois take place at a title company. The title company really does 2 things for you as a buyer or even when you buy. They take all the money in from all the different sources. They take your down payment from the real estate company they gave initially, your earnest money. They take the down payment you bring in the day you close. They pay out all the realtor commissions. They pay all the state, city, and county transfer stamp taxes. And then they also sell you 2 kinds of title insurance. One for the lender's piece, which is primarily the mortgage side, and then the other for the owner's piece, which is primarily your down payment. But in Illinois, it's traditional and customary for the seller to pay the buyer's owner's title insurance piece, which is the smaller of the 2 title insurance pieces. And then the buyer will pay the lender's title insurance piece. And a lender will not close without title insurance. So that those fees are not really optional. And then to break them down, there's a third fee from a title company called the settlement or the closing cost fee. And most times in most title companies in Illinois, I'm seeing about a $1,500 or $1,600 charge now just for their settlement or their closing cost services. And that pays for their closer that is assigned to your file, paying all the government taxes, taking in the money, taking in your money, paying out realtor commissions, et cetera. So it's almost like it's a giant bank teller, but it's also an insurance company because they're selling you title insurance as well. Title insurance is priced by the size of the purchase price and the size of the loan. So, on a $300,000 purchase, title insurance could easily be another $1,500 or $2,000, in addition to their closing cost fee, which is around $1,500 or $1,600. So title cost can be also a significant fee.
Yep. Yeah, I guess just comment there. If for whatever reason you're direct with the seller, we always put in the contract, we want to own, we are in charge of title, right? It's typically the seller and their attorney is going to be, an agent of the title company. He's going to pick, Greater Illinois Title, Chicago Title, wherever it's going to close. If we're direct though in our contracts, we always write in that we want to control that because one, it's one less variable. We go to title companies we know will perform and not delay anything. But then two, your title agent, so like my attorney, because of the work the amount we do, we're usually going to get better rates. Or at least if you don't have that, you can at least shop it, right? You can shop around to 3 title companies, save yourself $1,000 or whatever it might be, instead of being at the mercy of the seller. So if you are direct, just remember that is we always put that in the contract, and sellers never blink an eye because they never want to deal with it. Their attorney might get upset about it, but it's just another way to shave off a little bit on your closing costs. So Perry, this is a great breakdown. Let's talk about some credits you might see, right? I think this is one that always surprised us. What are some credits you might see when going to close, especially if you're purchasing, let's say you're purchasing a 3-unit.
Yeah, when you're purchasing any property in Illinois, you're going to get a credit for property taxes because taxes are paid a month or a year in arrears, basically. So, like for example, here we are near the end of the year, and property taxes in most counties are due twice a year. In Cook County, it happens to be March 1st and August 1st. Some of the suburban counties, it typically is June 1st and September 1st, meaning that the tax bill is about cut in half. So you pay half at 1 month and half the next time it's due. So if you're buying property, depending upon the month that you close relative to when the last property tax bill was due, you might be receiving almost up to a year's worth of property tax money from the seller, because if you're taking over now, in 3 or 6 months from now, that next tax bill wasn't really yours. It was from the prior year when you didn't own yet. So you get a good amount of seller tax credits, generally up to about a year, depending upon the month in which you close relative to the month in which the most recent property tax bill was due. And then the other thing that you'll see is when you buy a multi-unit property, there may have been security deposits that were secured from all the tenants. So they have to turn over the security deposits to you once you take over and you buy that property. So you may find that you'll have rent credits on your closing statement. And additionally, relative to the day of the month that you close, if it's just past the first of the month and the tenants have already paid for this entire month and you take over a few days into the beginning of a month, the seller has to turn over the rent from that month minus those days that the seller owned it. So if you take over on the 5th, let's say, and the tenants paid the rent on the 1st, then the seller has to give you the rest of the month rent money from the 5th to the end of the month. So that'll come across as a credit for rents. So always watch that. What I see sometimes when the seller says, well, we didn't collect any security deposits, we don't have any leases, they're just month to month tenants, and then no, there probably isn't going to be a security deposit for you, but they still should give you credit for the rent from today, the closing date, to the end of the month. So always watch out for the rent credits and the security deposit credits.
Yep. Great stuff. I want to make one comment on the security deposit, at least the way we handle it in Chicago, because we're terrified of RTLO. If they're going to transfer security deposit, we usually ask they pay it out directly to the tenant, and then we can start anew if we want to do a security deposit or not. And the reason being, if they hadn't paid the interest for like the 4 years, the 5 years that the tenant had been in place, and they come back saying, hey, I never got my interest for this, it was transferred to you, potentially, and I'm being very conservative here, but potentially you could inherit that problem. So we always take the stance of give them the security deposit back, right? And then if we want to do a security deposit, we could set up a whole new one where we know we're going to pay the 10 cents of interest every year, or just not have it, or whatever we want to do. But at least we're not potentially on the hook if they had a savvy attorney to go back and say, hey, 2 years ago, these guys didn't get interest, even though you weren't the landlord, you inherited it. It's your issue.
And also, if you are security deposits and say you do keep them, there's certain things you have to do in all of Cook County now that you have to disclose where you're putting it and so forth. You have to disclose it's been transferred, it's a new bank where you're putting all that stuff. So if you are receiving security deposits of credit, there is, like Tom said, liability one way, but if you are keeping it, make sure that you're following all the rules.
Yep. and talk to your attorney through that. Perry, awesome stuff, man. This was good. This is one we can share with a lot of people because these are questions we get a lot of times. So
yeah, and then there's also the state and county tax too. That's $1.50 taken together. So 1.5 or $1.50 times the sale price. But that is the responsibility of the seller to pay that.
Yep. Buyer just gets hit with the big old Chicago one.
That's right.
So, all right. So Perry, I believe you are a North Center / Roscoe Village guy. So Mark, this should be a somewhat layup Chicago fact. At least I would have gotten this one. Usually I would. Usually I give you things harder than what I would get.
Okay.
So let's see if we get this one here. So North Center used to be home of this amusement park that closed in the 60s. It then became the site of DeVry, and now it's the site of DePaul College Prep High School. Located over at Belmont and Western, what is the name of this now closed amusement park?
River.
Ooh, come on.
I got the river part right.
Yeah. One more syllable.
Hold on. River.
Perry's dying to answer.
Go on, Perry.
All right, it's Riverview.
Riverview. Oh,
close.
Yeah, man. I knew it. I could see it. I couldn't spit it out. So, all right. That was a layup, and I should have had that.
I liked it. We'll get another one like that.
Nice. I'm a DeVry alum too, so I should have known that. History. All right, guys. Awesome. Very welcome back. And it was awesome having you here, Tom. Thank you as always. Listeners, check out our website where we have, we're a few weeks out now, but we have our 100th episode, the whole photo gallery up there now. It's pretty cool. Share us with a friend. Please leave us a review. And if you know any potential guests, let us know. And we would love to have them on the show. Thanks all. And we'll see you Thursday.
Thanks all.
Thanks.